So what would your advice be to someone who is a new real estate agent on how to have a $10 million first year?
I had no idea what the next step should be. There's no sexy way to say I want to be an entrepreneur to your parents. Maybe the underlying fact that I had ADHD and never knew about it.
In today's episode, we're honestly going to break down why you should even care about this podcast, what the purpose of this podcast is. We have two 20-something-year-old guys here. Obviously, we have not lived very long lives and done tons and tons of things, but I would say in the amount of time we have been on planet Earth, in business and life, we've done a fair amount. So we're going to kind of give an introduction to what is the Roots podcast? What does Roots mean? Why is it called the Roots podcast? And as many listeners might know, we are both in real estate. We are both investors of real estate. I have Airbnb's properties, Max has properties, and we sell real estate. We have a real estate team of 5 agents, and it's been growing a lot. We've now sold $60 million in real estate. And we thought about, okay, are we starting a real estate podcast? Another bigger podcast junior? And honestly, where we both arrived was not really. Real estate will be a big part of this podcast, how to structure deals, how to pursue deals, how to build wealth in real estate. And honestly, a lot of lessons learned from building a real estate company of agents. But more so, we're talking to our past selves, which were kind of fresh out of college, people who were of the cut from the cloth of lifelong learners, wanted to be investors, wanted to build something, yet they're kind of grasping at how do I get there? And I think real estate for any type of person with that mindset is going to be important, whether you're just buying your own home and want to build equity that way and stop renting, or if you want to have a portfolio, of which I would think many of our listeners want. So in this episode, we're going to share who we are, what I guess has molded us into the people we are today. So Max, what is a habit that has helped you the most in terms of getting off the ground as a real estate agent who is 23 years old?
There's a lot of habits out there that help entrepreneurs see the lens of how these mega companies were created. The one thing that stands true is there's one person behind it that has been able to build an empire. I became obsessed with that when I was like 16 years old. A lot of people, maybe somebody that went to high school with me is watching this and is like, oh no, that was the idiot that was yelling out in class. Or if he wasn't interrupting, he was sleeping in the back of the classroom. That's because my brain didn't fit in the box of, a brick prison. We'll dive in later on how you were an urban educator, which I'm always intrigued by, just from your life today and what that looked like in the past. Super curious on that. But for me, it was maybe the underlying fact that I had ADHD and never knew about it is the reason why school was never a box that I fit into. But the reality is there was just an obsession that I wanted to build something. But when I listen to all these podcasts, it's like, oh, you have to create the next iPhone. You have to create the next super vacuum. You have to be the next Jeff Bezos and think outside of the box on everyday low prices straight to your doorstep. Those are mighty feats to go after. And when thinking about habits in the beginning, it just started off as like an obsession to succeed. Then you get a little bit of success and you go, what actually is success? And try to define that and work backwards. And where I landed is now I'm living a life where I could continue to chase and move that needle. And I'm at a place where I just want to create boundaries. And that's where habits come in, is to start the days. 5 a.m. every morning, I do the same exact routine. I look like a robot walking down my stairs, grabbing my toaster out, putting a bagel in, cracking my first energy drink after drinking a glass of water, because my brain needs that to start. And I finish my day the same exact way. And every day I do that so that my brain goes, good night and good morning. And in that process, I'm ready to get rolling. Straight into gratitudes, some exercise, time for my mind in the morning always. And I think that's the habit and framework 2 years ago that I started. And then I read a book, called Atomic Habits that actually validated that I'm not insane and not a robot, that you actually do need those. And even I think where we got to that question, I knew that it was coming. It's because I was like, if we're going to do a podcast, we need to start it the same exact way every single time. So our brain goes podcast mode. So we're on episode 200. We know exactly where to start. And there's no like awkward exchange. And then we lose all of you guys. Retention's going down currently as I speak. I want to pivot it back over towards you. How do you go from being a teacher to a real estate agent? You tell me there's a lot that do that conversion, but I don't believe you.
Yeah, I think what I've learned about myself, and I think self-awareness is the meta skill. If you're not aware, you're like Plato in the allegory cave, the person like stuck in the cave watching the illustrations on the cave wall. You're not in reality. So what I've learned about myself is that I am very motivated by impact and empowerment. And I thought the lane I was supposed to do that in for many years would be the classroom, would be with youth. And so I started kind of starry-eyed. I'm going to join Teach for America, which was a little bit prestigious and hard to get into, and go to an urban school. And it all sounded like this romantic, high impact story. And some days it was like that. I was teaching kids who barely knew English, about the founding of our country. I was a socialist teacher and stuff like that. And, sharing some of those lessons was impactful. And I think, not to take away from that ambition to be a really good teacher, I think it's a very noble thing. However, for me, after 4 years, I felt like I was ground down, like in a coffee grinder, just to bits and pieces, and losing a lot of passion for, honestly, life. To give you an example, I was very much like think out of the box type of educator. So I was like, if I'm in 6th grade, which I taught 6th grade, what would motivate me? Competition, a game. So I made a ton of things a competition, a game. And the reward, if students finish their work early, is I would take them outside and we'd just talk about life and play and go out and have fresh air. Well, I got reprimanded multiple times to the point where I was risking getting fired for doing these types of unconventional things in the classroom that worked. Every student was excited to enter my classroom, and they were like, I would hear them say, I can't wait to go to Mr. Lingo's classroom. We're going to do this fun competition. And they would just but the bureaucracy of public education was grinding it down. And so by COVID 2021 was really when I started to make the switch. I was absolutely exhausted from it. And I knew I had to make the change. The reason I chose real estate was because in many ways it was the opposite. There was no set established location you had to show up to every day. Literally, and the runway was infinite. Yeah. Public school was like, cool, your salary is $45K. That's what it is. It can't go up. Real estate was like, it could be $1 million if you work hard enough, or it could be $20K if you don't, And I liked that freedom and flexibility. And I was attracted to the investment. You can start when you're 25, and by the time you're 50, you'll have made millions of dollars through the compounding of time. And it just felt like you can see it. It's like, that is a good investment. That is a better investment than almost, besides education and your brain, I think it's the best investment. So I was like, I know I got to get into real estate, and getting the license seemed like the next step. I had no clue if I would be this realtor person.
It was about investment first.
Yeah, it was about investment first.
Yeah.
Those were my first 2 deals, was my own investment properties were my first 2 deals.
So replacing $40K can't be that difficult, but cash flow is going to be difficult to.
Well, that was my goal the first year, was to literally make $40K.
And was that in the investment space? Was that wholesaling? What was the thought process? Or were you just like, I'm going to buy one property and figure it out?
So I remember my dad saying, whoever can figure this out, whoever can be this investment minded realtor and know all the next places to invest and all the developments happening around town and has those inside secrets, is going to do really well. And he was like saying like, you should do this.
Mm-mm.
And I was like,
He's not wrong.
that's exactly what I should do. I was like, as a teacher, I was like, I can teach this real estate, right?
Mm.
That's when it clicked, when it was like, oh, that's when all the things light up in my brain. Like I can take what I had learned urban. So I was like urban indies where all the investment was happening and literally apply it to real estate. And I think other people grabbed onto that. So they wanted to be clients.
Yeah.
Quick, they trusted me because of that story that I had. So for listeners, I mean, having a narrative about where you've been and how and where you're going and how others can be involved in that, game changer. That's the hockey stick moment.
In any entrepreneurial lane, whether that be as an investor yourself, because how can you buy and acquire more properties? Oh, raise private capital and bring partners on. And also in the lane of being a young real estate agent. How do you grow? You have a story that you articulate extremely well, a why. People rally behind that. We always talk about like, not when I say we, I'm talking for the industry of realtors as a whole. It's like when one person moves in the tribe, everybody else moves.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched it happen in my family. Like over 60% of my family just got replaced into new homes because one person moved and everybody else is like, oh, that's sick. They got a new construction home. I want a new construction home. Mm-hmm. It's just how it goes. What it really boils down to is being able to lead people to a win, which your dad, very sharp guy. He hit the nail on the head. How soon after having that first deal closed were you a licensed realtor and off and running?
Yeah, so it probably seems unrealistic that, oh, you got your license, you're a teacher, now you bought 2 investment properties. How does that possibly happen? Because most people who don't start investing in real estate, it's because of the money. They don't have the capital. And that was because back when I was a teacher, I did buy a house in Irvington, which is a fairly cheap market, for $118, and used my W-2 job to buy that, and then sold that the last year as a teacher. And it was worth about 2 times more than I bought it for. We did do some work to it along the way, and the market was, the market during that time, it was speeding up like crazy. So that allowed
118 sold in like 2021.
So for 200.
So you just opened up a ton of capital.
I made 6 figures on the sale. So I bought 2 properties and our own second home with it. Because 20% down, you can buy 3 properties actually with that amount.
How old were you when you bought that house?
23.
23.
Say.
That's 23. Held it for 4 years. The reason I stop and ask that, my first house purchased at $200K. I was 19 years old. Sold it 3 years of ownership for settlement statement, almost $100K on the nose. That's crazy how much those. We argue on this, but I say your primary residence is not an asset. It is a liability. But I put an asterisk. I think your first house is an asset. Your first house is an asset in terms of you have a base built and you're able to go after that, put some sweat equity, turn some wrenches and, do work to it. That capital moves. Like you're going to, it sets you up for everything. If you can continue,
what's a confidence booster?
Equity, it's huge. Yeah,
yeah. It's literally the mindset shift from I'm renting to I'm owning it's more for your mind and your overall outlook on life that now I'm an owner.
Yeah. It's your second house, and anything after that becomes a liability. Like I promise, the house we live in today is a liability over an asset.
I do want to break into your background to switch gears a little bit. I remember the first thing I learned about you, Max, was oh yeah, he's Max, he's 22 or whatever, and he owns a supplement store.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what in the world? How did that come to be? Why at that age? Like that's a really unique feature of a person. How did that come to be? Why?
Yeah, GNC was purchased as a result of I had no idea what the next step should be. Taking it back to high school, I told my parents, like, there's no sexy way to say I want to be an entrepreneur to your parents at 18 years old, right?
Difficult.
Like, what are you going to go do, kid? pressure wash, build a company that way. Great way to do it. A ton of people
Sure.
have been able to scale, but like I didn't have anything tangible to take them. I'm just like, I feel like I have more to give than to go and be boxed into some being tied to a desk. I didn't want to live in a cubicle. Now, I didn't know COVID was on the way, but if I did, I guess not a lot of people are tied to a cubicle, even if they work that type of job. Work from home, change the lives. However, I asked, I'm like, can I take a leap year coming out of high school? And at that time, they're like, that doesn't sound like a great idea. I had just gotten diagnosed with exercise-induced anaphylaxis. I was a top 10 swimmer in my class across the nation and had a lot of opportunity in that direction to go to college. But that was the only reason I wanted to go to college, was to be an athlete. And once I lost that, I'm like, I don't know where I want to go. So of course, mental health wise, they were like, is this you need a break because it's just been a really tough set of years? Or are you trying to go after some fantasy that doesn't exist? And the reality was, when I talked about entrepreneurship, it was some fantasy that doesn't exist in their brain. It didn't calculate. Dad's worked for the same company. He's about to retire at the end of this year, since he was early or late 20s, and he's in his 50s now. Mom's been a nurse all the way throughout. So they were in the lane. They were in the path. And I'm like, I couldn't even articulate what entrepreneurship was. Now I kind of still can't even articulate what it is and what I do. Somebody asks like, hey, what do you do for a living? I'm like, in which lane, on which day? The question was, how did I buy a supplement store? And that was the first thing that you had learned about me. I bought that supplement store because I did end up going to college. I went to Indiana Wesleyan University, chose to do it online because I felt that going on campus wasn't best for me, that I wanted to explore some sort of entrepreneurship while getting a degree online, and did an accelerated version. COVID ended up hitting anyways, so everybody went home, kind of lucked out in that. I didn't look like the oddball saying like, yeah, I'm doing online college while everybody else is off at campus. Not at Indiana Wesleyan getting drunk every weekend, but at IU getting drunk every weekend and partying their way through their young 20s like everybody does. And where I landed was working 70 hours a week at a supplement store at GNC while doing my studies online. And I get my degree. The owner of that store comes to me and is like, what's the next step for you? Because at that point, I was operating both of his franchise stores. I was doing all the inventory control, the hiring, the firing. I was running the show. I mean, I was the guy that mopped the floors at night and turned the lights on in the morning at one store and had another person doing the same at the other. Sales had increased we had a huge swing across the two stores. He was up 300K on the year. Mm-hmm. So for me getting my degree, he's like, are you going to go be a youth pastor? That's what I went to school for. That's what I felt like, interestingly to you, called to youth ministry in a lot of ways is what you were doing. It's what I felt called to. And I kind of looked back at him. I'm like, I have no idea. I loved the idea of real estate investing. Didn't have enough money to do it. Had just got done renovating my own house. So had some experience, didn't use a realtor. Mm-hmm. Didn't even think that like real estate agents made that much money, to be honest. I had no idea because I'd just done my own deals. Went to the bank, got a loan, went to a title company, put them together. Don't do that. Made a ton of mistakes now that I know what I know. And I looked at him and he had just gotten his real estate license, just started working with Alex Montagano. And I'm like, I think I want to be a realtor. He's like, sweet, go get your license and I'll mentor you through it. Brand new agent working with his rich friends. What does that equal? Me having no clients and having no direction or guidance on how to get clients. So I spend about 6 months trying to figure out how to be an agent while still operating the stores. So I'm part-time as an agent over hours of a full-time job at the stores. Couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, one day it just pops into my head. I don't have time. Like literally there's no time for me to get out of the store to go network. I can't break in. I can't go to the trainings because I'm stuck here. I have to figure out a way how to get out of here, but still have money to eat at the end of the day and to pay my mortgage. What that resulted in is I either need more money, I either need a raise, or I have to buy the store. And that was sprung on to me by a Bigger Pockets podcast where they talked about buying a 6-figure income. Listened to it on the way into work, walked in, he was in the back, and I go, "Hey, Adam, can I get a raise?" I knew he was going to say no. I was doing the books. He couldn't give me a raise. I was literally at my ceiling. And I go, "What's your purchase price for the Plainfield store?" Had no idea what that meant. No idea how to do that. He had planted the seed. Do you want to be a business owner? What do you want to do next? 6 months prior, I go down this real estate, rabbit hole where there really was nothing going on because I didn't have time to do it. And he threw out a number that was $100K lower than what I thought the store was valued at. And I'm like, deal, let's get it done. Which led me to 9 months of SBA. Small Business Association loans are no joke. It's definitely not like a DSCR loan. They for sure want to know what you ate last night for dinner and everything else. And somehow, some way, Huntington Bank and GNC Corporation approved a 21-year-old that 20 at the time, that had no idea what he was doing with his life to buy a store. Still in it today. Would I buy it again? Yeah, I learned a lot. The lessons learned are worth it.
It's kind of like your first home is a liability. Your first GNC store
is a liability.
Yeah.
Certainly in 2024, not moving.
It's hard to compete with Amazon, I would think.
It is. Yeah. It's brick and mortar is interesting. And the marketing that goes behind brick and mortar, it matters so much to the people that you have in the store. My guys are great. They are amazing at what they do and help me out a ton, but they cannot replace me because I care about the bank account. Like, I care deeply about how much money's in there. It's on me, right? It is a liability. Unless if it's cash cowing, it's a liability. And when it's flirting that meter of profit, if I clocked in, I'm going to get the sales done because it matters. That is a hard job to find somebody who's going to care at that level. That's what I provided for Adam, my former boss. I did care at that level. My income wasn't tailored to sales or anything. For whatever reason, I gave a shit about how much money he made. Like, I wanted to make him rich. I wanted him to never have to come into the store. That was the mentality I brought into the workplace as an employee. That's why I had hit a ceiling. I've yet to find that drive in somebody, which I'm realizing as I get older, how unique that was for me to be in that position. And like, I guess I'll toot my own horn, a diamond in the rough. Like, it's just hard to get an employee that's going to make $30K a year to give a shit. And, which I do have 2 fantastic employees that have been with me forever, and they crush it and save my life and save my time in so many ways. But they know if I went in there, I'm going to outsell, because I also have done it for 10 years, right? Which is crazy. Okay, not 10 years. I've done it for 8 years. But at 24, to even say that I've worked in occupation for 8 years is wild. So yeah, that store, if anybody wants to buy a GNC franchise, brick and mortar still works. I think the main thing to gather from both of our stories, and somebody's sitting at home going, man, I really want to be an entrepreneur. I really, really don't want to work this W-2 job anymore. I'm in high school. I'm tired of being in the classroom. I'm thinking about going to college. Don't have a scholarship. Don't want a bunch of debt. I want to go in, and they're in a situation like I was, where I couldn't even articulate to my parents. Like, I just used the word gap year. And my parents envisioned me smoking weed behind a dumpster. And that's like what they thought that my life would come to. And then it was doomsday that I'd brought that up. What are the habits that people can start today to arrive there? I feel like we've just spit about each other, and it's like, yeah, Max and Tyler, who are these 2 idiots with a microphone? How can a listener go from being an audience member, growing with us, starting habits? I'm always intrigued by, guys, follow Tyler on Instagram if you don't already. 6 mile run this morning. Why? You're crazy. Why?
No, people will see me post a lot about physical habits, exercise, running. And it's because I believe if you're building a house, it's like the foundation blocks. I really truly believe is the physical habits.
Yeah. Where do you learn that and then actually go and put the shoes on and do it? I think is my biggest hurdle.
That is it, actually. That's the whole thing.
Just putting
Once
the shoes
you
on.
are, that's literally getting the plane in the air, is how do you put the shoes on every day and do it day in and day out? And what does that do? David Goggins has this thing I love, which is calluses of your mind. He talks about it all the time.
But it's
how
David
do you build
Goggins. Like the dude.
But exactly, David Goggins started somewhere.
True.
So you start with saying, I'm going to, for this entire week, I have my 5 workouts or whatever. You plan it out. You put the shoes out the night before.
Yeah.
You do it in the morning before you get tired and have a day of work. I don't care if it's 4:30 a.m. you have to wake up. I did that for years teaching. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. and worked out. And
is it first thing out of bed? Shoes,
no,
shirt,
I don't. I was absolutely a psychopath and did that right out of bed.
There's a
and
new
did
baby.
burpees.
There's a new baby in the house. Life's changed, but where does that habit fit? I mean, I'm about to be a dad at the
So for me,
potentially
tangibly, if I wake up at 5:30, I will have about an hour of like coffee, reading, relaxation, prayer,
exercise
where I'm not like
first.
Yeah, I'm not going straight into it, decaffeinated doing burpees.
Right.
But I would say after I have had that warm up for my personal time, that is when I do it. It is the second thing. So the first thing is the habits of the mind, and I would say the soul, which is the prayer.
Yeah.
Then the second thing would be the habits of the body. Before I knock off the to-do list. The error that many entrepreneurs even make is they go straight to the to-do list. They don't give time for their mind, their soul, or their body.
Yeah.
They just go straight into work.
I think a lot of realtors and real estate investors operate in the same, that if it's a real estate investor that's got a W-2 job, right? They've got to go to work. It's the first thing, hop on whatever search platforms, Zenless is the best, to look at the properties, to start analyzing immediately, because they've got to fit it in the day. You actually are the one who, well, I'll say my early upbringing of swimming woke me up to exercise in the morning. But until we partnered up in business, it wasn't straight to the gym for me. I would squeeze that in, or even when I was working at GNC, I would do it at work with like bands and push-ups and things like that. There was no gym membership for me. And I started following you after your brother connected us. And I was like, that's the one thing that stuck out. Stories constantly, workout, this. And then you had all the success on the back end. And when I was stalking you before we met, I'm like, that has to be why he's successful. It comes down to the exercise in the morning, which now that I know you well, I actually think is true. For you, that is the engine that runs everything.
Yeah, I would say it's the keystone habit. Like I think for many, if not most, it will be that physical habit. I don't care if it's swimming, running, lifting, walking. I don't really care. It's because that is what trains the calluses, right? So I would say it's incredibly important. It's kind of like the idea of like, if you win the day before 8 a.m., the rest of the day is just downhill. I feel like that's why I love a 6-mile run in the morning. It literally feels like everything after that's easy.
But it could be 3, right? Why is it going to be 6?
It has been 3 many mornings. It's not 6 every morning. But 3 or 6, it doesn't really matter. The hard part is starting.
Yeah, I don't even know, like running terms. What is a marathon? How many miles?
It's 26.
26 miles. So like that's actually only like quarter marathon.
I mean, a marathon is something most people never do, and very tough. But
no, I won't.
Yeah.
Physically, literally impossible. I would die. That's unique to say.
Taking a look at what you do, I think the thing I am most curious is you are a producer. You are very good at getting shit done. There's no other way to put it. I think you can just like tackle I don't know if it's a do list or a system. How do you get so much done? Because you're going to sell, I don't know, 18 million of real estate. That's a lot of emails, texts, phone calls, driving to properties. It's just a lot of shit that most people can't even comprehend how much that is. What is behind that? Like, is there a habit or a way you think about things? What is the engine that propels that to actually still be a sane person?
I get bored. Like genuinely, I get extremely bored. And what I learned about myself early on, getting out of, I never finished homework. knowing what I know about myself now and like who I am as I've understood like core values more, I know that had nothing to do with the actual task itself or like a lack of education. I could have got that stuff done so easy. But you know what was easier? Copying off somebody 10 minutes before the assignment was due and leveraging another person, which you know isn't even the strategy that I use in business. Mm-hmm. But when I'm not excited about the thing, I do that. I do find somebody else that can do it. When it comes to real estate and helping people build wealth, that excites me and I get pumped up about it. So it's easy for me to pop open the dot loop and send out the email signatures, right? It's easy for me to go and analyze a ton of properties because I enjoy doing it. But just like you, it's how I start the day to be able to fuel that up. It's not it's not as rigid as yours is, going straight to exercise, but there is some sort of physical movement and activity in the morning. A lot of gratitude is huge for me. And
what does that look like? You say gratitude. What is that? Just sitting there, gratitude. What do you actually do?
Yeah, I have a notebook that is like the gratitude notebook. And it is just simply writing out 4 things I'm grateful for today. Some days that's literally, I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my, 3 days in a row. It could just be gratitude to my wife for mothering our child, carrying our child, right? Growing inside of her.
It's a good one. Keep doing that gratitude.
Yeah, I probably should have happy wife, happy life. Yeah. And where it goes from there is immediately into what could be perceived as working in the business and not on the business. It's 2 postcards to advocates, key advocates in my business, thanking them, giving gratitude to the support that they have brought to me, my business, which in turn my family, right? I say it could be perceived as working in the business because I'm very rigid to the email, messaging, to-do lists. Those don't exist before 10 a.m. They just don't, because that time is the time for me to not get stuff done. It's reserved for time for me to let my brain wander and think. And that also is what fuels me up. Like part of my day, what doesn't feel like work is inventing new ideas on how to make our company better. That's why you'll get spam texts from me in the morning of, we should do this. We should implement this new thing. We should start a podcast, right? Because that is like the best, highest and best use of Max.
I think the 2 things I heard you say was, 1, find something that you are passionate about, and that you don't feel like you want to copy someone,
right?
And do it, that can produce value for the world. And then 2 is do the high value, high leverage tasks earlier in the day.
Yeah.
In the email, the mind drain, so they just drain your mind. Save it for after a certain time.
Yeah. I don't need 17 assistants to be in my inbox, because you know what happens whenever I don't respond by 10 a.m.? I've heard people say this 1,000 times. Problems are no longer problems because people figure their shit out. Whatever somebody was urgent with the like fire cop emoji, need your response now. They figured out what the response was because I didn't respond. Are they mad at me because I didn't respond? No, they went to me first because I was the easiest person to go to. If it's, I need to figure out where to send an earnest money check to a title company, right? Who's going to know better than that than me, right? The title company. So they find their contact and reach out to them. Just a stupid example that I see.
This reminds me of, there's this matrix that is at the top left, to be like not urgent, not important. And so it's a 2x2. Not urgent, not important. And then there's urgent, not important. And then there's important but not urgent. And then there's urgent, important. Of course, it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. Of course, the urgent and important is like, you need to do that ASAP. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But then where people get stuck is doing the urgent but not important. For us, starting this podcast was important but not urgent.
Yeah.
But we're sitting here doing it. It's the only thing on my calendar this whole afternoon. I could probably find 10 people to call, 25 emails. a bunch of meaningless shit to read on Substack or something
The reality
to fill this time that is quote unquote urgent.
the reality for people that just got licensed that are trying to pin their first deal ever, right? We could both easily go and pin a property right now.
Yeah.
Easily.
We could go make short-term money. We could go make $5,000 now, but lose literally millions of dollars by not doing the important but not urgent.
Right.
So I think what we will hit on a lot is that kind of that Eisenhower Matrix of focusing on what is important but maybe not urgent and how to move the needle in your life or business.
I love the Eisenhower Matrix. You talk about that very often. What I add to a second layer to it, that's just a quick trigger for my brain. If it can be done in 5 minutes or less, do it. Do it while it's in front of you. If it can't, schedule it. And if it's your 5th time doing it, find somebody else who can do it. So unpacking that. Repeatable task, there's somebody else that can do it in your business. Urgent tasks that can be done in 5 minutes or less, they're too easy not to just do, right? Go to a very visual example. The trash is overfilling. What do? You take the trash out. Somebody calls you, they need something sent to you, just send it.
Yep.
If it is a longer task, if Tyler calls me and says, I want to start a flipping company next year, we need to figure out an SOP to do that. I go, great, love it, Tyler. That's what you should be calling me to talk about. My brain's going to think about the best way to do that and to build a system. That's what I'm an expert in. I'm going to schedule that for 2 weeks from now because it's not urgent. It's important. So I'm going to carve out time, which does cue back to the Eisenhower Matrix. But for my brain, I have to know 5 minutes or less, do it. If it's can't be done in that and it's not your 5th time doing it, schedule it. If it's your 5th time doing it, your objective of the rest of the day is figure out who's going to continue to do that task. Mm-hmm. And that has unlocked everything for me this year. Mm-hmm. I was terrified of asking somebody else to do something. Like as an entrepreneur, I'm like, there's nobody who can do it better than me. It doesn't matter at all. That's not how you scale.
Yeah.
Because the greatest founders that I know, that I've studied, are still doing it. They're still in the business. They haven't sold. The greatest founders who are the wealthiest people in the world own 100% of their companies. So why would I have somebody else do my task? And then you study more and you go, well, they're not doing the mundane task. There is somebody else coming in that can earn much more than a paycheck at our company that can also do that. Mm-hmm. And that's been like the huge growth for me. You, however, are, I feel like on the opposite side of that coin, where you're a starter. You start really important things that move the needle really far and find the person that can close them out, which is super cool. That's actually probably why we're business partners, because I was the guy closing them out because I could get tasks done. That's why we work well together.
Where they say with partnerships, find someone who superpowers your weakness.
Yeah.
You mentioned you have a brick and mortar store, you sell supplements, GNC. You also sell real estate. Those are 2 wildly different products.
Yeah.
What's the difference when you show up to GNC to sell supplements versus showing up to home to a showing?
Brick and mortar is becoming more and more challenging to be able to market because you have to stand out to the Amazons, right? I can't compete with the EDLs. We had Costco move into
EDL?
Everyday low price. We had Costco move into our marketplace and Avon. And I know that that's impacted our sales because they sell a lot of the same stuff that we do. And what used to work that I need to get back in and under the hood and clean up a little bit is when I was running those 2 stores, our loyalty customers knew who I was by name and had my personal phone number. And they would text me and say, are you working today? They wouldn't text me and say, are you working today because they're going to get a discount. It's because they were going to get the expert level on supplements. Very similar to how I run real estate. It's all relationships and it's all slow growth through relationships. I worked for, I mentioned that year before I purchased my GNC, I'd increased sales by over 300K across the 2 stores. The reason for that was because it was a compound of relationships over time. And I still have people, I work Mondays, 10 to 2 at Plainfield GNC. If you ever need to find me, that's where I'll be. And there are the most loyal customers, even if they work 10 to 2, they're coming in on Mondays. Our highest day is Monday. And it's because it's a compound of 7 years of relationships and expertise that I bring. And they now at this point are friends and just want to chop it up. And that's why when you call me on Mondays from 10 to 2, I'm like, I'm not answering. And it's not because I have 17 customers in the store that I'm helping. It's because I have one that's probably brought me 17 customers that I'm intentionally taking 30 minutes out of my time to talk to. And I only know them through GNC. So it's refreshing too to like get back in. And that's exactly how I've built my real estate business. Now, I could probably use your brain on brick and mortar, on social media marketing and different things to drive more traffic into the store. But what I know is good business is done with people that you know, like, and trust. Even if that's just buying your stupid pre-workout. Like, which pre-workout should you buy? And knowing that that is the best, not just the product that, you know, TikTok shop is selling you.
What I heard you just say is it's sales. Sorry, excuse me.
No, not
it's
sales.
Relationship. You're like,
I agreed to it.
I got to sell stuff to make money. Who would have thought?
Not the highest
No,
margin.
it's relationships.
Yeah.
That
It is.
your recurring customers go because of the relationship. And same with real estate. Your recurring customers work with you when there's 10,000 other agents in Indianapolis because of the relationship.
Not only with me, they scream from the top of the buildings, if you are going to move, you are going to move with Max. It's not even my tagline, but that's what they say. Because they're fired up about the relationship that I have with them. And then I'm really good at what I do and protect them through the sale. That is the embodiment of how entrepreneurship has shaken out for me. And I feel that I stumbled upon that really guided by our mentors. And as we both were building separate books of business, combining together, we both were brought up on relationships. We're at the relationship brokerage of the city, right? At Properties ND. But it is what matters. And I don't want to be transactional. Like Zillow leads are disgusting to me. They help people.
I mean, the founder of our business, his tagline is, we move at the speed of relationship.
Yeah.
Something about that just sounds really nice. And it's not a slogan that they never put into, like, he literally moves so slow through a conversation. You'll meet for an hour and it'll be like 3 hours every time with Mark Nottingham.
No, he literally says that that's his biggest default, that he could have scaled way further if he didn't move at the speed of the relationship. But that's also the best thing that he's done too, because he has raving fans and people who genuinely know and trust him.
But the reality is too, especially for the brick and mortar product, is price matters.
Yeah.
And Costco is going to beat you on price. But I mean, does that mean move over to the real estate side and forget about the supplements? Or
on the personal level, that's what I've done, right? You know my schedule probably better than I do some weeks. It's gone that direction. It's all real estate. Selling 18 million this year, I wasn't working full time at the store. Where that moves to is it's become a good asset. And I know that, like, if the floodgates need turned back on, it can be. But I mean, tell me, what store do you go to that you walk in and you know the name of the person behind the counter?
None.
There isn't one.
Yeah.
At my stores, 90% of the customers knew exactly who I was walking in. And it's because I took the time to talk to them. And what that now means is I have 2 employees who, you know what the greatest compliment that I ever get is? Man, you're here today. Where's Nick? Nick hasn't been in here in forever. I'm like, yes, Nick is prioritizing relationships. I don't care if Nick knows shit about supplements. He can talk to people and help them get closer to their end goal. Literally, I used to get on Google in front of customers. If I didn't know the answer, I'd start Googling it. But it's because I've been talking to him for 25 minutes. I don't care anymore if I have to literally look up the answer to what product they need and I'm supposed to be the expert. Doesn't matter at that point. And what it's led by is a lot of questions.
I just saw a kind of a local business owner in town had a really interesting post on LinkedIn that got a lot of engagement, and it said pretty much was like, the shift is happening, moving back to small. And it was like, it used to be that the currency was attention, eyeballs, millions of eyeballs.
Yep.
He's like, now he's like, that's not selling as well. It's actually go small, cultivate a raving fan audience who knows, likes, and trusts you, and provide real value for them. You'd be surprised how little amount of numbers you need of people that will actually swipe the credit card and give a shit because they know you care too.
I mean, why do you think mom and pop shops worked so well? It's because you got to go in and talk to either mom or pop, and you cared about their family.
Mm-hmm.
And transacting with them meant that their family was getting a better life.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we've advertised in my brick and mortar store.
Mm-hmm.
And it moves the needle tremendously in the right direction. Where the culture and habits break are, yeah, it's a brick and mortar store and I get beat by Costco because Costco's Costco. And honestly, Costco makes you kind of feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not through communication like this. It's through a membership.
Mm-hmm.
You're tied to them. You got the card in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go in. They're fighting for the best price for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the shift of, okay, well, maybe I can take that relationship model and bring it into a different industry.
Mm-hmm.
But as a founder, that'll be what every business that I own is grown in. The foundation of it all is wealth-minded relationships. In the lane of entrepreneurship, I hate that word for whatever reason. I don't even know why I hate it. How do you balance a healthy relationship with your wife and family and being an entrepreneur? Huge shift from being a teacher, right? You're a teacher for years. You got this rigid schedule. You leap off into entrepreneurship. How does that affect home life? And how have you been able to balance that being a first-year dad, coming up on being a dad? I'm super curious.
The short answer is you don't.
Yeah. Dang it.
No, but to be honest, I heard this on a podcast that work-life balance is a myth. There's no perfect equilibrium. That may be in a science class. In real life, it does not exist. There will be a trade-off. So I'd rather, instead of talking about work-life balance, I'd rather talk about trade-offs.
Yeah.
So when I was building my business in 2022, the trade-off I made was less time, quality time with my wife, less quality time reading, less quality time doing things I loved, like hiking or playing sports or traveling, to build the business. And it was a trade-off I willingly made. I said in 2022, I want to make as much money as possible. And that's what I did.
So in entrepreneurship, you're trying to find balance with going from rigid schedule to I have this relationship, I have home life, and you do that through trade-offs. You give up what you absolutely love to do to go and pursue money. How is that? Is that a verbal agreement between you and your wife? She's a huge supporter. I know that she backs what you do.
I wasn't saying that was like the end, because that obviously has consequences. Absolutely. So not all of them good. That had negative consequences in the personal life, personal health realm. Definitely. Like I literally, my stomach got messed up, just like too much stress, literally bottled up, just like literally, I think I had ulcers or something going on that was really messed up. So that's proof that like that there was a massive toll to the trade-off, but my bank account equity going straight up.
At times you've told me you literally had no idea how much money you made that year.
Oh, I didn't know till the end. And when I looked at it, it was a lot of money compared to what I was making as a teacher. It was a multiple of at least 5 to 6 times the amount. So for me, and that was the first full year in real estate, because the year before I transitioned halfway through the year. But in 2024, this year, I'm now making different trade-offs. So what that looks like is at 5 p.m., I have a baby at home. My wife's trying to cook, and he's like opening the cabinets, pulling glassware out, pulling silverware out, going to town on this cabinet. That's what his new thing is.
Curious storage, right? That's what he's supposed to be.
He's supposed to. And I have a deal that I'm stewing on the side. I'm working a deal. I'm telling someone about a property or setting up a showing, and it's like, oh, I know I'm getting one step closer to this commission, to this deal, and I have to be like, no. Actually, I'm going to go grab him. I'm going to set my phone in the other room, shut the door so I can't even see it, and go pick up my son, and for the next 2 hours, be totally absorbed in family life and forget. By 7 p.m., I usually return to my phone. It's blitzkrieg. It's going absolutely bonkers on my phone. But I did the right habit, which was I sat down for a meal, was totally absorbed in my family's life. Before, it would have been phone next to me as I'm eating, stitching this deal up. Sometimes 2 hours does make or break a deal in reality, actually in real estate.
Most of the time it does.
And so I've lost things this year, but I've lost dollars to earn really my life back and the things I love and care about.
As you were talking through that, what went through my head, you're not going to relate to this at all. But I see these TikToks where it's like, watch this freestyle of this rapper that's rapping like absolutely crazy, like 21 Savage back in the day, just spitting bars. And it's always like, here's 21 Savage rapping when rent was due, just going crazy. That was his sole focus in life, right? I knew that would not hit with you at all.
Whoa.
Because that's not where your brain goes and that's not what you're into. But it's like these huge creators.
I love that.
We'll go to Zach Bryan.
Yeah.
Zach Bryan, first album, doing it out of passion, right? Then it becomes occupation. That sound changes throughout time. And as an entrepreneur, it's seasons of our lives that we have to go through. And I love that. Who cares if the deal falls apart? Because you have this baby that you get to literally is from the creation of God and you and your wife. And who cares about the deal at that point? But it's because you went through and made those sacrifices in the past to be fortunate to have that. I mean, that's a huge gratitude and a huge win. There are people in our industry this year, coincidentally, as you're explaining that will go talk to me. And I'm like still trying to emerge from being Tyler's little Padawan to being Tyler's business partner in the marketplace. They go, Tyler's perception is happier today than he was 2 years ago. And looks like he's just living life. Like literally we'll ask, is he even selling real estate anymore? Or is he just living life? Like that you have some fortunes that you're sitting on and drinking Mai Tais.
I don't even know myself. No, just kidding.
Which I know is not the reality. You're still grinding, but I admire the way that you've been able to establish work-life balance. I know every day is not pretty. I know that, there's things and trials that come up, but overarching in 2024, I would say that shift has been huge, which I'm bored right now because I'm trying to shut it all down and go for a month off to be present with my wife as we bring our newborn home. And yesterday I gave in to the temptation of I could go pin to deal right now, knowing that I can't even help them close it. An agent, my buyer's agent's going to have to step in and do it. My buyer's agent's texting me, please don't, please don't you don't have to depend that deal this second. And it's not like it's transactional. It's built up through a relationship. But it was at a point where it's like, back it and affirm it, and it gets pended. And he knows that it's just another one on his plate. But I'm just bored. So like I was out there hunting for deals, sending them out.
And for people that don't have context, there are agents in our industry that would die to have a pending deal on their lap who have not made money in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months that are like, I need to make a commission. And you're over here like, I'm getting bored, so I'm lighting people up and handing them off.
Right.
Which is just wild to me compared to where you were at in early 2023, January 2023.
Yeah.
You hadn't sold any real estate yet.
No.
And then essentially just went on a blitzkrieg from February on.
Yeah.
And I've sold a crap ton.
Today was supposed to mark the day that I had 0 pendings. And unfortunately, that one is going to close, just not right now. So in 2 weeks, I'll have 0 pendings. So the first time since February.
So what would your advice be to someone who is a new real estate agent on how to have a $10 million first year? $10 million is a big year. How do you make that happen? You've clearly done it.
You have to be on purpose. And you have to care more about getting the win for a client as opposed to getting a transaction done. You have to give up yourself and your ego in the situation. That was my biggest hurdle, is giving up that I know best. I know how to get this done. I know what the best deals are out there. This is what you should pursue, and just sending them out to 1 billion people. Where I started to win was when I took myself out of the equation, asked deeper questions, whether it's working with an investor. Why do you want to invest in real estate? Oh, I want cash flow. No, why do you want to invest in real estate? Tell me why. Not that you want cash flow. Not that you're...
Why do you want cash flow?
Why do you want cash flow? Asking the deeper questions to boil it down to, I hate my job and I want to be able to replace my income so that I can go and build this other thing. Okay, well, maybe the answer to that is real estate's not even the path that you should go down, and getting personable with the clients that are in front of me. Or if it's a retail client talking about moving, new construction, whatever it is, taking that intentional time for the relationship was the byproduct of having a $10 million year for me. And then it was doing that at scale, which is the challenge. Throwing every ball up into the air and continuing to juggle it and get stuff done. That was, I'm having your 2022, which was walking into this year. I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to go sell as much real estate as humanly possible. And this is not going to be easy in our household. 20 days into that, we found out we were pregnant. That goal of 20 million went out the window and was a quick adjustment to, you know what, let's do it. Let's hit 20 million, but it has to be done by October. And that's an even harder goal than within 12 months, right? Just cut 2 months off the end, because I knew that I wanted to take it to reframing to now I'm at a place where it is work so that I can take the time off. And that's been a huge shift, but I've been rapping like my rents do. And that's how it's been.
Well, I think what I just heard there is there's seasons, and you're in a season of hustling like your rent is due. In 2022 is the same thing. I was transitioning outside of the security of the salary from the charter school, which was not great, but provided me a lot of motivation to make as much money as possible. Every time I sold a piece of real estate and was at the closing table, it was like I was taking cocaine. It was like, it was a good drug. I mean, at least it was more positive than that cocaine. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, I can get paid to do this. This is amazing, because we're creating wins. We're lining up wins for people. Where now every marginal deal I do is actually taking time away from my family and my habits. So I have a battery that I watch. And when I can tell I've sent way too many emails, my mind is hurting, because I'll feel it physically, actually. If I'm like, I'm selling too hard, I'm grinding a little too much today, that my battery will be negative. When I'm with my family, it'll be non-existent. I stop. I literally just stop. But that's because I now have the margin I have the savings and investments to be able to do that. At one point I didn't. And I'm glad I didn't have a baby at the time. It would have been a massive struggle.
It would have been extremely hard. What I just heard was you have more self-awareness now to what you need. And you also can vocalize that and are willing to be vulnerable and vocalize that out. What I love about our team, I received a text yesterday. Okay, put your phone down, go eat with your wife, from one of our team members. You know what I did? Put my freaking phone down and went and ate dinner with my wife, because that's what I vocalized that I want. Yeah. That's why I've worked hard, is to be able to do that and have that intentional time to balance entrepreneurship and home life. He knows that. You know what season he's in? He's rapping like his rents do. So he's like, I'm going to go grind this out. What I love about our company is we're building a platform so that agents can arrive there and scale without ruining their lives. I mean, we both have seen dark days in this industry, and it was a byproduct of going too quick, too fast, and, having to solve 17,000 problems in one day and then being told no. Like, that's not the answer, right? And the whatever roadblock we hit was the deficit. And you see that dark day and you go, man, I don't want to feel that way again. That was Q1 for me this year, 2022 for you, or maybe early 2023. And it's super cool to be on that like parallel growth pattern, and then also go, okay, well, we're adding rocket fuel to agents on our team. They're going to hit that way quicker than a year. It took you a year and a half, took me a year. It's going to take the next guy 6 months, and already lining up the next person, so that like, I encourage people, go hit the fucking brick wall so that you know what it feels like. If you've never hit the brick wall, you don't know what it feels like. And you don't know your limits and you don't know your boundaries. No, it's super cool. I'm excited to do this show more often and to be able to chop it up with internal episodes. We're going to have guests, of course. indie business owners is going to be the focus. Really planting roots back into the city that we belong to. Yeah, I'm pumped, man.
Yeah.
I can't wait to sit down and have intentional time. That's like not always going back towards our story and what we've learned, but I mean, we fucked up a lot in the past 2 years. There's a lot of things that a lot of lessons can be learned through that, which is where growth comes from. But
I think this podcast is going to help a lot of people connect the dots. And the amount of questions I get in my DMs is not the biggest question I'm getting in my DMs on Instagram, wherever, is not, hey, can you help me buy or sell a home? I wish it was that.
I wish it was that.
To be honest. It is. So if you are, hit us up, DM me. I promise I'll respond.
It never works that way. Dreaming.
Wink, wink. No, but it is, hey, I love the lifestyle you're building. Can we talk about career advice? Or, hey, can you help me with my next move? Dude, I wish I could do that all day. I get paid $0 for doing those meetings, and I take them all the time.
Yeah.
And we talk about what would it look like for you to do this or that, or entrepreneurship. But really, it's like, I want to be able to hand them this podcast and be like, dude, follow along with this podcast. This is going to have all the lessons and from people in our city. Yeah. Movers and shakers who are actually living a life of meaning.
Yeah.
What we're really talking about is not real estate, although it's a huge component. It's living a life of meaning, really, is what we're trying to hit at with this podcast. And we are not experts. I have many, many, many flaws, that I have to continually confess and repent of. But it is that we're striving and we're hopefully aware of them and moving in the right direction. So I'm rambling. I'm going to cut it off. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you in the next Roots podcast.
Peace.